Under a blood-red moon, an army of devils spreads malice across the land. But a lone hero sits calmly above the ruins, completely unfazed by the horde. The demonic creatures finally spot him, their eyes glowing with rage. He wastes no time, launching himself directly into the fray. A dark, swirling projectile is his opening move against the charging monsters. Then he gathers brilliant blue energy in his palm for the real attack. Chains of light erupt from above, swiftly dispatching the lesser demons. The massive demon lord can only watch in shock as its army vanishes. Now that same sealing power begins to envelop the final boss. Wielding a blade of pure energy, the hero flies in to finish the job. He declares that he himself will become the ultimate power to end this fight. A colossal explosion of pure energy engulfs the battlefield, sealing the deal. But this godlike power all stems from one principle, turning imagination into reality. The scene shifts to a memory of a young boy staring in awe at a wisp of magic. Yet his own attempt to wield it fails, the fragile light vanishing from his hands. He sits alone in a grand courtyard, convinced he's just terrible at magic. Suddenly, a smug voice from behind breaks him out of his gloomy thoughts. A simple flick of a finger from the newcomer conjures a perfect, stable flame. This talented rival, Astar, mocks our hero, Solon, for his complete lack of skill. All a dejected Solon can do is mutter his rival's name in defeat. Astar's smug grin widens, clearly relishing Solen's despair. He then shames Solon, calling him a disgrace to their royal lineage. A sudden blast of magic sends the defenseless hero flying. Our hero is left groaning on the ground as his rival gloats above him. Tears of frustration well up in Solen's eyes, his spirit nearly broken. Unable to bear it any longer, he turns and flees the courtyard. Astar's laughter echoes as he reveals his true ambition, the throne. A single tear marks Solen's face, a symbol of his crushing defeat. But this whole confrontation was secretly witnessed from a balcony above. The king and queen themselves watched the entire painful exchange unfold. The king's face is grim. He has seen enough to make a decision. And so, a new chapter begins within the sunlit walls of the royal castle. A mysterious man with silver hair formally greets the two young princes. Astar immediately gets defensive, demanding to know who this stranger is. He calmly introduces himself as Listardi, their new magic teacher. The name sends shockwaves through both boys, especially a stunned Solon. This is no ordinary mage, but a living legend whose power can reshape the very earth. A starstruck Solon can hardly believe his luck, getting a cool confirmation from his idol. Listardi's true purpose is revealed, to prepare them for a duel that will decide the next king. But the arrogant Astar scoffs, calling the great magician a fraud he has nothing to learn from. Listardi's cool gaze meets the prince's fiery disrespect without a hint of concern. Astar then turns his scorn on Solon, declaring him completely and utterly talentless. He insists that for a failure like his brother, even a legendary teacher is pointless. But the great mage remains completely unbothered by the royal tantrum. Listardi calmly schools the arrogant prince, stating that only results can truly define talent. His profound words leave both young royals momentarily speechless. The master then reveals his true goal, to forge power that will last for decades. Astar explodes, accusing the teacher of looking down on him, but Listardi just smiles it off. Convinced of his own genius, the prince furiously rejects any form of guidance. As Astar storms away, Listardi simply accepts his decision, turning his full attention to Solen. With one prince gone, Listardi turns his full attention to Solon. The dejected boy asks if someone like him can ever truly wield magic. His new teacher offers a comforting pat, insisting it's too soon to judge talent. Solen's face lights up with newfound hope as he's told he has a future. The legendary mage then makes a bold promise, to make him a top-class magician. Their first lesson is simple: master a single spell, demonstrated with a dazzling display of water. He explains that magic is merely a tool to create what you truly desire. The training moves to the library, where Solen must think deeply about his goals. A practical test goes poorly as the prince's punch meets a solid magic shield, much to Listardi's amusement. Solen finally understands that magical power is drawn from an unbreakable will. Listardi reveals that his rival's unshakable belief in his own genius is actually a source of power. This confidence was the very thing Astar used to torment him for years. Taking his master's words to heart, Solen focuses his mind and begins to believe. With newfound resolve, he unleashes a torrent of raw magical energy. His teacher immediately puts this new will to the test with a massive boulder. Solen throws up a barrier, meeting the immense weight with everything he has. He grits his teeth, straining against the overwhelming pressure. Cracks begin to form as his desperate defense starts to buckle. But in a final burst of power, he doesn't just stop the rock, he obliterates it. Exhausted but triumphant, Solon can only stare at the fragments of his first real victory. Solon stumbles, barely able to speak after his incredible feat. His teacher, however, looks on with an air of quiet approval. The raw power still crackling between them is a testament to their intense session. While Solon is pushed to his limit, Listardi seems completely unfazed, even impressed. But as the dust settles, the young prince notices something strange about his master. A closer look reveals unsettling, scar-like patterns covering Listardi's arm. A concerned Solon can't help but ask about the mysterious marks. The legendary mage's calm demeanor shifts as he examines his own old wounds. He begins a somber tale, revealing his hometown was once engulfed by the flames of war. A tragic memory surfaces, showing the day he lost everything and everyone he loved. A remorseful Solon immediately apologizes for bringing up his master's painful past. But Listardi just offers a gentle smile, brushing it off as ancient history. He then reveals the source of the kingdom's peace, a colossal seal tower. This tower holds back an ancient evil so terrifying, it acts as the ultimate deterrent. Protecting this structure, he explains, is the true duty of the royal family. A fire ignites in Solon's eyes as he vows to become king and defend his home. But first, he knows he must overcome the one person standing in his way, Prince Astar. With newfound purpose, Solen pours everything into his training under Listardi's watchful eye. The legendary mage stands ready, his calm demeanor hiding immense power. 6 months later, the fated day arrives as the two princes face off for the throne. With the royal family watching, the king announces the start of the duel for the crown. This is it, a battle between brothers to decide the future guardian of the seal tower. The signal is given, and Solon immediately lunges forward, his hand crackling with energy. Astar merely smirks, casually conjuring a ball of fire in his palm. With a manic grin, he unleashes his signature flame magic, ready to incinerate his brother. A massive pillar of fire erupts from his hand, roaring across the arena. But Solon's own power rises to meet the inferno, causing a spectacular explosion. Astar is left stunned, completely baffled by his brother's sudden defense. His disbelief quickly morphs into rage, screaming that the weak will always be weak. He then glares at Listardi, insisting that teaching a talentless failure was utterly pointless. Listardi calmly replies that for someone like Astar, his teachings would have made no difference anyway. As the smoke from the explosion clears, a figure stands completely unharmed. Astar can only stare in wide-eyed shock, his arrogance completely shattered. It's Solen, his hand outstretched, radiating a brilliant aura of protective magic. His gaze is cold and determined, a silent testament to his incredible growth. The smug prince's face contorts into a mask of pure, unadulterated rage. Losing his cool, Astar unleashes a frantic barrage of fireballs from above. He screams insults as his desperate attack rains down upon the arena. But a single condensed orb of blue energy meets the fiery onslaught head-on. Solen's perfect barrier effortlessly repels the attack, much to his brother's horror. Astar's face is a picture of pure disbelief, his world crumbling before his eyes. But Solen isn't waiting for an apology, charging forward with a fistful of righteous energy. He slams into his brother with a powerful shield bash, turning defense into a brutal offense. The arrogant prince is sent tumbling through the air, completely overpowered. Astar hits the ground hard, his reign of mockery coming to a decisive end. The self-proclaimed genius is left unconscious, a testament to his own arrogance. From the royal box, the king rises, his voice booming across the arena to end the match. With a powerful shout, he prepares to announce the official winner. The victor is declared, and the name Solon echoes, stunning the young prince himself. As the reality of his victory sinks in, Solen's gaze finds his master, Listardi, watching from the sidelines. The legendary mage gives his student a simple but powerful thumbs up of approval. Overjoyed and in disbelief, Solen shouts to his master that he actually did it. Listardi allows himself a small, proud smile, his faith in the young prince justified. The scene shifts to the grand throne room for the official coronation ceremony. His father, the king, formally recognizes Solon as the legitimate heir to the throne. Kneeling before his father, Solen humbly accepts the royal scepter and his destiny. With a determined yes, the new crown prince embraces his future responsibilities. Listardi watches the ceremony from a distance, his expression serene and unreadable. But this moment of triumph is being watched by a bitter, shadowy figure. A defeated Astar seethes from behind a pillar, his face a mask of pure, murderous rage. The king announces a grand feast to celebrate the new heir. The queen proudly congratulates her son, who's still blushing from his victory. With a grand gesture, he invites the entire kingdom to revel in the festivities. But as night falls over the castle, the joyous mood gives way to an eerie silence. A strange, magical light suddenly washes through the castle's once lively halls. Everyone from the king to the common folk falls into a deep, unnatural slumber. Even the new crown prince is powerless against the spell, slumping into unconsciousness. A shadowy, hooded figure emerges from the darkness, approaching the sleeping hero. With a swift and silent motion, the intruder snatches the royal scepter from Solen's grasp. The mysterious thief now stands before the seal tower, ready to unleash chaos. Stepping over the slumbering guards, the thief proceeds completely unopposed. The royal scepter becomes a key, its magic resonating with the ancient lock. With a groan, the colossal doors part, unleashing a long-forgotten presence. A cataclysmic surge of energy bursts forth as the ancient seal is finally shattered. Miles away, the new crown prince's eyes snap open, jolted from his magical slumber. Clutching his head, Solon struggles to understand the sudden jarring sensation. A faint, desperate call echoes in his mind, pulling him back to full consciousness. His gaze is drawn to the window, where a fiery explosion lights up the night sky. He watches in horror as the source of the blast is revealed, the seal tower itself. But the most chilling discovery is that despite the chaos, no one else has woken up. He confirms his suspicions. The entire castle guard is trapped in a magical slumber. A cold dread washes over the young prince as he pieces together the horrifying truth. His worst fears are realized as he stares at the seal tower's shattered doors. With a surge of adrenaline, he sprints through the silent halls toward the disaster. He cautiously peeks inside the tower, bracing himself for the absolute worst. A mysterious cloaked figure stands before the central seal, wielding the stolen royal scepter. The ancient chains binding the evil artifact crackle with energy, ready to burst at any moment. A desperate shout escapes Solon's lips, a last-ditch effort to prevent the inevitable. He confronts the intruder, demanding they step away from the kingdom's ultimate taboo. But the figure simply pulls back their hood, revealing a shockingly familiar face and a condescending lecture. Solen's mind goes completely blank, his shock summed up in a single word. The traitor is none other than his own master, Listardi, who claims he wanted to do this quietly. The young prince can only stammer his teacher's name, his trust completely shattered. He demands to know why the man he idolized is standing at the scene of the crime. Listardi coldly reveals that this betrayal was his master plan from the very beginning. The prince stumbles back, refusing to believe this horrifying turn of events. His former teacher then begins a lecture, pointing to the glowing artifact at the tower's center. He reveals its identity, the sealed tome, a prison containing all the world's evil. A desperate Solon begs him to stop, fully aware of the catastrophe about to unfold. But Listardi, surrounded by an inferno, declares the world is already corrupt beyond saving. His cold gaze challenges Solon, asking if he agrees with this twisted worldview. The young prince can only utter his master's title, his world completely shattered. Listardi slams his hand on the tome, declaring that this kingdom's false peace cannot be allowed to continue. Malicious energy surges from his palm as he begins to shatter the ancient artifact's bindings. He screams his true motive, to steal the world's malice and become its sole vessel. Dark power pours into the seal, the chains groaning under the strain of his will. Solon can only watch in wide-eyed terror as his mentor unleashes Armageddon. The prince clutches his head, overwhelmed by the sheer dark energy flooding the room. In a final, desperate plea, he reaches out, crying his master's name one last time. But the legendary mage offers only 2 chilling words in response. "I'm sorry." Listardi admits that despite his betrayal, their time together was genuinely enjoyable. He praises Solon's righteous heart, certain he'll become a wonderful king. But he screams that such a naive worldview can never bring true peace to the world. With a final desperate cry, he pours his power into shattering the ancient artifact. The magical chains that have held for centuries finally burst apart. A horrified Solen can only scream his master's name as the unthinkable happens. Listardi's gaze is cold and resolute, his path now set in stone. The sealed tome floats ominously, its ancient bindings completely undone. It bursts open, its pages flipping as a torrent of forbidden power is unleashed. A cataclysmic surge of dark energy erupts, consuming the traitor and rushing toward the prince. A sinister purple miasma erupts from the tower, poisoning the very sky. From within the abyss, an ancient evil awakens, its countless eyes hungry for freedom. The monster's gaze falls upon the sleeping royals, declaring the start of its horrifying feast. With a drooling maw of razor-sharp teeth, it promises a night of absolute terror. Meanwhile, Solen is trapped in a strange vision, bathed in a mysterious golden light. He awakens to a nightmare, chained to a pillar high above his burning kingdom. The young prince can only watch in horror as his home is engulfed in flames. He struggles against the magical chains, desperately trying to understand his new prison. A sinister laugh echoes through the inferno, mocking his futile efforts. Suddenly, a winged being of pure golden flame materializes before the captive prince. A startled Solon demands to know who dares to appear before him. The mysterious entity mockingly asks if he's so easily forgotten after a small change. It reveals a powerful winged form, lamenting how lonely its existence has been. But the true shock is the person it holds, a sleeping Listardi cradled like a prize. Solen's eye reflects the impossible truth of this new yet familiar entity. His mind finally connects the dots, realizing this being is his master's true form. The vision shifts to a memory of a city engulfed in a sea of flames and chaos. A terrified mother and child are trapped, their screams lost in the inferno. Demonic beasts made of pure fire descend upon the helpless pair. The mother is consumed by the blaze, a final, horrifying image seared into memory. A lone soldier can only curse as his city burns to the ground. His comrades are in chaos, unable to comprehend the monstrous invasion. But their captain roars for them to hold the line, refusing to give in to fear. He reminds them of their sacred duty, to protect the innocent at all costs. Their heroic stand is cut short as the very earth opens up to swallow them whole. Even their brave leader is overwhelmed, his final moments a desperate plea for help. One soldier succumbs to the darkness, his humanity twisting into a monstrous new form. This new creature has its sights set on a mysterious woman, its coils tightening. Their dark silhouettes are framed by the inferno, a horrifying new power couple. The remaining soldiers can only stare, their minds shattering at the nightmarish scene. The city's last defenders fall, their bodies littering the scorched earth. A grotesque, translucent creature slithers over them, absorbing the fallen. Their essence is consumed, turning the monster a horrifying shade of crimson. But one lone knight rises from the slime, refusing to go down without a fight. With a final battle cry, he curses the monsters destroying his home. His defiance is met with a brutal, crushing blow from an unseen foe. The overwhelming force shatters his final stand in an instant. His attacker is revealed, a hulking golem of pure destructive rage. From the ruins, a new power emerges, her dark tendrils commanding shadowy puppets. Her very hair becomes a weapon, ensnaring the last remaining soldiers in its grasp. A captured soldier's final plea for mercy is choked out by the encroaching darkness. His life force is completely drained, leaving behind a withered, empty husk. The puppet master laughs, suspended by her own dark power as she consumes the city's last defenders. The horrifying vision forces a scream from Solon, who feels every moment of the tragedy. Tears stream down his face as he relives his master's past, witnessing the annihilation of his home. The winged entity taunts him, questioning whether his tears are born of sadness or pure rage. It reveals this was Listardi's plan all along, to make Solen feel the same despair he once did. A broken Solen can only ask his former mentor what kind of monster he's truly become. The entity's chilling smile reveals a deep-seated hatred, claiming Listardi despised people like the prince. Solon struggles against his chains, desperately refusing to accept this twisted truth. It claims Listardi always found the prince's happy, sheltered life utterly repulsive. But now, it finds Solen's raw, emotional despair to be truly wonderful. The prince screams in defiance, refusing to believe this monster is his teacher. He demands to know the true identity of the creature before him. With a horrifying grin, the entity reveals its true form, a devil. The shocking revelation sends Solon's mind into a state of pure terror. A sudden, sharp pain courses through him as the magical chains tighten. The devil explains this agony is from the ancient seal his own family created. It declares that humanity's attempt to erase devils was a deeply sinful act. The creature then mockingly asks Solen if he agrees with this twisted truth. A horrified Solon can only scream the truth he now understands. His master is a devil. The winged entity mockingly congratulates him for finally putting the pieces together. It declares that his family's long-held duty to guard the seal has officially ended. With a sadistic grin, the devil asks how it feels to be the one who failed that sacred mission. Solen grits his teeth in agony as his former master twists the knife. The devil revels in his despair, finding the prince's suffering absolutely wonderful. It then makes a grand declaration to the world. The devils have returned. But as the chains binding Solon begin to strain, the devil's monologue is cut short. The prince looks up in utter confusion, sensing a new presence on the battlefield. A knowing smirk crosses the devil's face as it announces that a new challenger has arrived. From the abyss below, a shadowy figure with glowing red eyes rises to join the party. Its arrival is heralded by a cataclysmic explosion of pure, unadulterated fire. The captive prince can only watch in horror as the inferno consumes his surroundings. A monstrous beast of pure rage and flame emerges from the heart of the blaze. The colossal flaming giant dwarfs the castle, a true titan of destruction. Listardi casually introduces this new nightmare, a creature born from pure envy. He then taunts Solon, suggesting the prince might know this monster by another name. A familiar, hate-filled voice screams from the flames, consumed by jealousy over the lost throne. The monster's face contorts into the deranged visage of Astar, screaming insults at his worthless brother. Solen's world shatters for a second time as he recognizes his own brother in this demonic form. A chained Solon screams at the inferno, questioning how his own brother could become such a monster. The demonic Astar mockingly offers a special gift to his dear little brother. His present is their own parents, held captive and helpless in his monstrous claws. Solon's eye reflects the horrifying scene, his mind refusing to process the betrayal. Memories of a once happy family flash before his eyes, a stark contrast to this new nightmare. Astar roars in jealous fury, unable to accept that his parents chose a failure over him. Fueled by pure, unadulterated rage, Solon shatters the magical chains that bind him. He soars through the air, a beacon of blue light against his brother's fiery, demonic form. Solon lands a devastating punch, pouring all his grief and anger into the single blow. But the monstrous Astar just laughs maniacally, declaring the powerful attack completely useless. Solon's righteous fury is met with overwhelming demonic power, sending him reeling. Astar's fiery counterattack sends the prince plummeting back to the scorched earth. The hero hits the ground hard, the brutal impact a harsh reminder of his brother's new strength. Despite the pain, he tries to reassure his captive parents that everything will be okay. Suddenly, a mysterious slug-like creature materializes, offering a moment of strange comfort. A dark, unfamiliar power begins to surge within Solon, his eyes glowing with a dangerous new resolve. But the sudden power surge is too much, leaving him completely drained and collapsed on the ground. Looking up, he realizes the battlefield is now crawling with a new cast of nightmarish devils. A seductive snake woman and a hulking rock golem join the fray, ready for destruction. The final member of this demonic council arrives, a shadowy puppet master with a wicked laugh. Bloodied but not broken, Solon's eyes burn with a terrifying new resolve. Listardi floats above the chaos, his angelic form a chilling contrast to the destruction below. The monstrous Astar gloats that he's stolen the kingdom, the people, and Solon's entire future. He commands his brother to embrace the despair of having absolutely nothing left. With a final, hate-filled scream, Astar unleashes his ultimate attack. A meteor shower of pure flame descends upon the helpless prince. But even on the brink of defeat, Solon musters the strength for one last defense. The fiery onslaught crashes down, consuming him in a devastating explosion. Trapped in the inferno, Solon screams in despair, believing this is the end of his royal line. Listardi looks on with utter disappointment, finding the prince's final stand completely anticlimactic. But as Listardi floats victoriously, he senses an unexpected shift in power. His smug expression falters as he turns in shock toward the seal tower. A torrent of white pages suddenly erupts from the ancient structure. The devil realizes these aren't just papers, but the contents of the seal tome itself. Down below, the defeated prince lies amidst the scattered pages of the ancient spellbook. The magical script seems to resonate with the fallen hero, glowing with an ethereal light. The pages suddenly swirl to life, wrapping around Solon in a vortex of pure energy. Listardi screams in fury, trying to stop a mysterious dark power from escaping with the prince. The demonic Astar roars in frustration as their ultimate prize is snatched away. Both the prince and the dark entity are pulled into the tower, vanishing from sight. Astar unleashes his full demonic fury, blasting the seal tower in a desperate attempt to finish the job. The ancient structure groans and shatters, unable to withstand the prince's jealous rage. But from deep within the ruins, a mysterious light signals that this fight is far from over. Solon lies broken and defeated, his body resting on a bed of the seal tome's scattered pages. A disembodied voice confirms the kingdom's worst nightmare. The ancient seal has finally been shattered. Though battered and barely conscious, a flicker of defiance remains in the young prince's eyes. The sealed tome reveals a harsh truth. Devils are born from human desire and can never be truly erased. As the last of his bloodline, Solen's life force is fading, his very existence hanging by a thread. The ancient tome poses a critical question to the fallen hero. Will he rise up and fight? Or will he succumb to despair, give up, and let his kingdom fall to ruin? Bloodied but unbowed, Solon rises with the sealed tome, its pages forming wings of destiny. Through a mask of pure agony, he forces out the words that will seal his new fate. He will fight. His eyes burn with crimson resolve as he screams his new purpose to defeat every last devil. The ancient sealed tome responds to his cry, its cover glowing with a mysterious power. A voice from the artifact acknowledges his will, promising to grant him everything he desires. The tome's central seal transforms into a single, all-seeing eye, its gaze locking onto the prince. It offers him the ultimate power, a new body, forged in the same way his ancestors once battled the darkness. A torrent of forbidden energy erupts from the pages, swirling around Solen to begin the transformation. This dark power is the culmination of his family's fate, a legacy of fighting fire with fire. The tome bestows its ancient knowledge upon him, declaring that all its power is now his to command. The ancient tome declares him the one true successor to the legendary name of Solomon. A flashback reveals the tragic story of a small country that was quietly wiped from existence. Its people were lost in the chaos, their futures extinguished amidst the rubble. The royal capital was completely abandoned, left to be haunted by eerie rumors. Over the centuries, nature reclaimed the city, leaving only bones as a grim reminder. Time flowed on, but deep within the ruins, a forgotten power lay dormant. And then, after an eternity of silence, something finally begins to stir. A crack of light pierces the darkness, signaling an imminent awakening. A hand bursts forth from a glowing cocoon, clawing its way back to the world. From the forgotten ruins, a new being emerges, reborn with a powerful new purpose. The pages of the tome swirl away, revealing the prince's completely reborn form. The ancient magic then weaves itself into a dark cloak and practical adventuring gear. He stands tall amidst the ruins, no longer a prince but a warrior forged in tragedy. His new attire is complete, a stark contrast to the royal robes he once wore. A close-up reveals his eyes now burn a crimson red, filled with cold, unwavering resolve. The sealed tome floats beside him, asking how he likes his brand-new devil-slaying body. The ancient book muses that it's been a very long time since it's been out in the world. Together they gaze upon the vast cratered ruins of what was once his home. The reborn hero can only state the grim truth. His entire world is gone. But the tome scoffs, promising to show him a much bigger world now that his small kingdom is out of the way. The tome formally reintroduces the reborn hero, a brand new Solon. Solen's first act is to shut the book up with a well-placed punch. He couldn't care less about the tome's commentary, much to its annoyance. The reborn prince then reveals his one and only new purpose. With a chilling grin, he vows to simply defeat every last devil. His sheer, unadulterated rage leaves the ancient artifact completely speechless. The book's all-seeing eye can only blink, caught off guard by his resolve. Suddenly, Solen's attention is caught by a faint presence among the rubble. A desperate scream cuts through the silence, confirming he's not alone. Yet the path to them is a desolate wasteland of shattered buildings. A tiny pink-haired girl screams in terror, her voice lost in the ruins. Her eyes widen in shock as she spots the source of her fear. A grotesque monster roars, its maw a horrifying vortex of razor-sharp teeth. The small fairy bravely stands her ground, telling the hulking beast to back off. Solen spots the commotion, seeing two of the creatures cornering the lone survivor. The sealed tome chimes in, stating the obvious, they're under attack. Our hero's crimson eyes narrow as he identifies the tiny victim as a fairy. The ancient book asks the million-dollar question, what's the plan? With a single command, Solen leaps into action without a second thought. He lands with explosive force, a dark guardian standing between the fairy and the fiend. A gentle tap on the shoulder sends the tiny fairy into a complete panic. She immediately latches onto her rescuer, completely flustered by the sudden save. But her relief quickly turns to annoyance after a clumsy little bump. The feisty fairy immediately starts scolding her hero for his reckless entrance. The sealed tome chimes in, amused by the little creature's surprising amount of guts. Her fear is instantly replaced by curiosity as she pokes the floating, talking book. But the ancient artifact isn't having it, reminding her of the monster right behind them. The fairy's face drains of color as she remembers the horrifying beast she was running from. Solon wastes no time snatching the tiny survivor out of the monster's path. He follows up with a devastating kick that sends the creature flying into oblivion. The second monster lunges forward, but Solon is already one step ahead. He calmly analyzes the creature, guessing it's a devil born from gluttony or greed. Meanwhile, the tiny fairy finds herself in a very compromising and flustered position. With a flick of his wrist, Solon conjures a ball of pure light, ready to end this. His first move isn't an attack, but a series of glowing orbs that pin the monster down. Then comes the real spell. A pillar of pure sealing energy erupts from the ground. Chains of light burst forth, wrapping around the beast with absolute authority. The fairy can only stare in awe, realizing her rescuer is a powerful magic user. Impressed but still practical, she tells him to make a run for it while he has the chance. But Solon clenches his fist, coldly stating that running is no longer an option. The tome warns that his new power is still completely out of control. He roars back, his resolve unshaken by the book's caution. Using the devil's face as a launch pad, he springs into the air. Soaring above his target, he gathers a sphere of brilliant blue energy. The reborn prince plummets downward, turning his defensive magic into a devastating weapon. His blow connects, completely obliterating the creature in a flash of light. As the beast vanishes, Solon is bathed in the fading remnants of its dark energy. The ancient book offers some cynical commentary, much to the fairy's bewilderment. Her gaze shifts to her blood-soaked savior, who seems to be enjoying the fight a little too much. A chilling grin spreads across his face, his crimson eye glowing with a terrifying new power. The fairy can only stare blankly, completely stunned by her mysterious savior. Her awe quickly turns to pure, starstruck admiration for his incredible power. She declares him a legend, the first person she's ever seen take down a devil alone. But Solon just walks away, silently navigating the desolate streets with a couple of new, tiny followers. He stops at a ruined building, leaving his new fan completely bewildered by his silence. Inside, he scans the wreckage, searching for anything that might have survived the destruction. He finds only dust and decay, a grim reminder that his past is truly gone. The hero coldly dismisses the ruins as worthless, stating that anything of value was taken long ago. His new fairy companion finally snaps, furious at being completely ignored. Even the ancient seal tome agrees, scolding its new master for his terrible manners. The feisty fairy points out that even the weird thing thinks he's rude, much to the book's dismay. She then gets into a heated debate with the tome, bluntly confirming that yes, it is weird. The book eagerly seizes the opportunity to finally introduce itself with a dramatic flourish. It proudly reveals its name is Demonicpedia, a dictionary created by the great King Solomon. Solon remains completely unimpressed, calling it a creepy book with a name that's way too long. Trying to be helpful, the fairy suggests a nickname, playfully landing on Demo Gramps. But our hero cuts in, deciding to simply call the ancient artifact Pedia. Thrilled that he's finally talking, the fairy immediately asks for his name. He calmly points out that she hasn't bothered to introduce herself yet either. A flustered fairy realizes he's right, caught completely off guard by his simple logic. She strikes a pose, cheerfully introducing herself as Faish. With a flash of magic, she pulls an entire shop's worth of goods from thin air. Her inventory includes everything from fresh food to cooking supplies. She proudly announces her true identity, Faish, the traveling merchant. Pedia is impressed, recognizing her use of advanced space-folding magic. Faish giggles triumphantly, having found exactly what she was looking for. Solon's attention is immediately drawn to the perfectly cured meats hanging from her stall. But his cool facade is shattered by a very loud, very undignified stomach growl. His crimson eyes narrow, his hunger suddenly becoming a top priority. Faish offers a hero's discount, cheekily suggesting he can pay with a proper introduction. He finally gives his name, a simple and cold Solon. The fairy is absolutely ecstatic, flashing a peace sign and a dazzling smile. As night falls, the unlikely trio sets up camp amidst the desolate ruins. Faish uses her magic to prepare a feast, complaining about the dusty accommodations. With a flick of her wrist, perfectly cooked steaks sizzle over the open flame. She then smugly shows off her skills to Pedia, demanding a little respect. The tiny merchant proudly presents her masterpiece, a massive steak sandwich. Solon accepts the meal, his stoic expression giving nothing away. But one bite is all it takes for his cool demeanor to completely shatter. Faish watches with a knowing smirk, her cooking clearly hitting the mark. Faish teases him for devouring the sandwich while trying to play it cool. Pedia smoothly changes the subject, asking Faish about their current location. The ancient book notes that these ruins have been abandoned for a very long time. Faish is shocked by their ignorance, calling them strange for not knowing the history. She reveals that 10 years ago, devils suddenly appeared and began terrorizing the world. The fairy explains that the ensuing chaos caused entire cities and countries to vanish. This very city, she says, was one of the casualties, its exact fall lost to time. Solen listens in silence, the crackling fire reflecting his somber mood. The flames trigger a painful memory of his family, his brother, and his master. His mind flashes back to the nightmare of their demonic transformations and his kingdom's fall. The memory of his demonic master fuels a cold, burning rage in Solen's eyes. As his new companion sleeps, the reborn prince stares into the fire, lost in thought. But Pedia breaks the silence, reminding Solen that it taught him how to fight devils. The book critiques his recent battle, insisting his reckless style isn't the right way. Solen grits his teeth, having no patience for a lecture from a floating book. The ancient tome presses on, warning him that his current path leads only to defeat. Fed up with the criticism, Solon turns his back on the chatty artifact. But a sudden noise from the darkness snaps him back to high alert. His crimson eyes narrow as he realizes they're not alone in the ruins. The horrifying truth is revealed. Another devil is feasting on an unlucky victim. The grotesque creature's maw opens wide, a living nightmare ready to devour its prey. Meanwhile, Faish sleeps soundly, completely oblivious to the horror unfolding nearby. Solen's eyes lock onto the victim, whose pained cry proves he's still alive. Ignoring Pedia's warning, he bolts forward, refusing to let another person die. With his last breath, the man makes a desperate plea to save his daughter. His face is a mask of agony, his only thought for the child he's leaving behind. The brutal scene sends a shockwave of horror through the young hero. But it's too late. The man's hand falls limp as the darkness consumes him. The tragedy triggers a painful memory of his own parents' final, horrifying moments. Fueled by grief and rage, Solon's hand ignites with pure destructive energy. He unleashes a torrent of magical chains, ensnaring the grotesque beast. With a furious roar, he uses the chains to brutally whip the monster around. The commotion jolts Faish awake, who can only ask what's happening. She then turns on Pedia, telling the floating book to cut it out. But Solon is lost in a flurry of rage, pummeling the devil with energized fists. Each blow lands with explosive force, a testament to his newfound power. The monster retaliates, erupting in a sinister purple flame that takes on a demonic form. The dark energy proves too much, sending a wave of agony through the young hero. Pedia can only call them fools, preparing to drop a harsh truth bomb. The ancient tome declares that this reckless rage is no way to defeat a devil. Faish explains that when the devils first appeared, countless heroes rose to challenge them. At first, humanity held its own, but the devils always came back stronger. The monsters evolved, their power growing with every single battle. Eventually, hope was lost, and the world's defenders were consumed by the darkness. The tiny fairy turns to Solon, her history lesson now a personal warning. As a seasoned traveler, she's seen this exact tragedy play out countless times. She warns him that he's now a prime target and needs to get out of there fast. But Solon's crimson eyes show he has no intention of running away. Instead, he smacks the lecturing book right out of the air in frustration. Pedia calmly tells him to cool it, reminding him that rage won't complete his mission. Solon's face hardens, clearly done with the book's constant nagging. The ancient tome warns that his reckless path will only end with him being devoured. It then delivers a brutal truth. Follow his emotions, and he'll end up just like his monstrous brother. That comparison to Astar hits a nerve, causing the young hero to visibly flinch. But Faish cuts through the tension, demanding to know why he's just standing around. Both Solon and Pedia are momentarily distracted by the tiny, energetic fairy. She strikes a pose, cheerfully declaring it's time for them to get a move on. Her sudden burst of energy leaves both the stoic hero and the ancient book completely baffled. As she zips ahead, Solon finally asks if she's seriously planning on joining them. With a cheeky wink, she explains that as a merchant with no destination, their journey looks way more interesting. Solon's only response to his new companion is a deadpan weird. The tiny fairy zips around in a fury, not appreciating the hero's commentary. Pedia sighs, resigning itself to traveling with this chaotic new duo. But Faish has already taken the lead, pointing them toward their next destination. The unlikely team sprints through the desolate streets, following their new guide. Their journey is cut short by a desperate plea echoing from a dark alley. They arrive to a horrifying scene, a grotesque monster attacking a man before his terrified children. The children can only watch in terror as the man is brutally overpowered by the beast. With his last breath, the man begs Solon to save his daughter, fueling the hero's rage. Ignoring all warnings, Solon charges forward as Faish screams his name in alarm. The ancient tome issues a final warning. Don't repeat the same mistakes. But Solon ignores the book, handing a small keepsake to the terrified children. He then becomes a human shield, holding the monster back while screaming for the kids to escape. Traumatized, the children can only cling to each other as the monster's grotesque maw fills their vision. With a frustrated roar, he unleashes a vortex of magical chains to restrain the devil. As the glowing bindings ensnare the beast, Solon gathers energy for a decisive blow. The chains constrict around the struggling creature, but it's not going down without a fight. Straining under the pressure, the young hero desperately screams for his floating encyclopedia. Faish peeks from behind the book, which calmly confirms that it's already on it. A brilliant light suddenly erupts from the artifact, leaving the tiny fairy completely speechless. Pedia activates its search mode, its all-seeing eye glowing with brilliant blue energy. The ancient artifact scans through countless pages of forbidden knowledge in an instant. With a triumphant "got it," the book locks onto the grotesque monster's identity. It reveals the creature's name is Goab, a devil born from pure, unadulterated gluttony. A surge of dark purple energy crackles around Solen as he absorbs this new information. He groans, his body struggling to contain the sudden influx of raw power. The tome calmly explains that he now has all the data he needs to fight this specific devil. Pedia's eye narrows, offering one final, chilling piece of advice: don't get eaten. A terrifying grin spreads across Solon's face as he agrees with the book's assessment. He roars back, declaring that tonight he's the one who's going to be doing the devouring. He unleashes a vortex of sealing magic, a storm of brilliant blue energy. The glowing tendrils ensnare the gluttonous beast, binding it completely. His magical assault tears into the creature, leaving deep gashes in its wake. The devil's form begins to unravel under the sheer force of the sealing spell. Faish can only stare in awe, completely stunned by his incredible display of power. But her awe quickly turns to concern, realizing this victory feels dangerously familiar. Pedia chimes in, confirming her worst fears with two simple words. The ancient tome reveals a harsh truth. Devils can't be destroyed, only temporarily defeated. Faish retorts with annoyance, having already warned them of this exact problem. But Pedia reveals the game changer. Solen doesn't destroy devils, he seals their very existence within himself. Faish's eyes widen in disbelief as she processes the horrifying truth of his power. His magic doesn't just destroy the beast, it completely exterminates its very essence. Pedia smugly confirms this is the only way, a brutal method of fighting fire with fire. The defeated devil's dark energy now swirls around Solon, a trophy of his victory. This raw, demonic power coalesces above him, a testament to the monster he now contains. A terrifying grin spreads across his face, revealing a man who's starting to enjoy the darkness. Faish watches in horror, realizing he's not just defeating devils, he's becoming a vessel for them. She can't help but feel a chilling sense of dread, finding his new power deeply unsettling. Solen's cold, crimson gaze meets hers, a silent confirmation that the prince she met is long gone. But Faish pushes her fear aside, rushing to check on the terrified children he'd just saved. The tiny fairy offers what little comfort she can to the now orphaned children. But her attention snaps back to Solon, a deep sense of unease washing over her. He's frozen in place, consumed by the dark energy of the defeated devil. Pedia explains that this is his first time, and he's struggling to process the new power. To seal a devil, the book reveals, one must first understand its very essence. Solon is thrown into a vision of a past warrior who lost everything to the devils. This warrior merged with the sealed tome itself just to keep his body intact. Now, Solon must relive this forgotten hero's horrifying battles against the darkness. Pedia clarifies the price of this power, experiencing every memory the tome has ever sealed. The ancient knowledge floods his mind, its forbidden text branding itself onto his very soul. He's forced to relive the final, agonizing moments of every soul the devils have ever claimed. Solen witnesses the corruption of heroes, their humanity twisting into monstrous new forms. Each memory is a soul consumed by purple flame, forever trapped within the tome's pages. The book snaps shut, a timeless prison for an eternity of suffering and rage. He meets the original hero who sacrificed his own body to become the living sealed tome. This warrior's curse is now Solon's, to bear witness to every evil deed the devils have ever committed. Pedia reveals this is a torment so great, not even the legendary King Solomon could have endured it. A horrified Faish finally understands the soul-crushing price of Solen's incredible power. She questions if any mortal could possibly withstand such an unimaginable burden. but the ancient tome coldly states that whether he can or not is irrelevant, he has no other choice. The dark energy of the defeated devil swirls around Solon as he absorbs its very essence. But the immense power forces him to his knees as he curses his own weakness. A worried Faish checks on him, but Solon simply smiles, declaring the fight is finally over. The tiny fairy is overcome with relief, thankful that her new friend is safe. She then scolds him for being so reckless, but Solon is taken aback by her genuine concern. Pedia questions her sudden display of affection, leaving the fairy completely flustered. The ancient tome quickly moves on, its eye closing as it prepares to process the new data. It triumphantly declares the seal complete, displaying a new entry for the gluttonous devil, Goab. Later, Solen brings the orphaned children to a safe haven within the ruins. The grateful children thank him for his kindness, finding a small glimmer of hope in the desolate world. Faish cheerfully waves goodbye as the trio leaves the children to their new life. Solen walks on, his back to the past, venturing deeper into the desolate landscape. But the children's innocent smiles suddenly twist into something far more sinister. Their forms melt away, revealing a dark, mocking presence that was hiding in plain sight. The shadows coalesce into a horde of grotesque, sneering devils. Pedia identifies the mastermind, Yajiu, a high-ranking devil who feeds on envy and mockery. Faish confronts the creatures, disgusted by their amusement at human suffering. The devil's hungry gaze follows our hero, its trap now sprung. The entire heartwarming rescue scene dissolves into nothing but smoke and mirrors. Solen's eyes narrow as he calmly states the obvious. It was all an illusion. The devil Yajiu taunts him with the illusion of a family being consumed by its minions. Solen's crimson eye glares, coldly asking if they found the cruel spectacle amusing. The devil's underlings flinch, completely caught off guard by his sudden murderous intent. With a snarl, his fist ignites with sealing magic, ready to deliver his own brand of justice. He becomes a whirlwind of righteous fury, obliterating the mocking creatures in an instant. Pedia reveals these were just low-level pests, weaklings who only exist to mock the suffering of others. With the illusion shattered, the trio continues their journey through a much brighter landscape. Solon walks in silence, the card containing the devil's essence floating beside him as a grim trophy. Faish ponders their new mission, questioning if the type of devil they hunt even matters. His response is chillingly simple, a vow to seal every single one of them without exception. Solen's eyes narrow with cold resolve, his mission now brutally simple, seal them all. But Faish points out the obvious flaw in his plan, noting that their number seems endless. The ancient tome chimes in, confirming her fears that devils are indeed an infinite plague. Pedia then reveals a new strategy. If they can't hunt them all, they'll aim for the big ones. A confused Faish can only ask what the book means by the big ones. The book explains that devils are drawn together by a mysterious force called spiritual gravity. This means that the strongest humans naturally attract the most powerful devils. And where there are strong devils, Pedia concludes, the weaker ones will always gather. Faish simplifies the lecture down to the strength of the heart, much to the book's annoyance. But this new information sparks an idea, as Faish cheekily reveals she might know where to find their targets. Faish offers up the location with a smug little smile, but Solen is all business. His crimson eyes narrow with suspicion, demanding to know her true intentions. The tiny fairy is completely caught off guard by his sudden interrogation. Solon stops in his tracks, bluntly asking what she hopes to achieve by tagging along. He presses further, wanting to know exactly what's in it for her. A flustered Faish struggles to find the right words to explain her motives. She finally explains that as a merchant, having a powerful bodyguard is just good business, and the fact that he's a devil hunter, she declares, makes him the perfect companion. Even Pedia has to agree, admitting that her logic is surprisingly sound. Faish celebrates the book's approval, much to the ancient artifact's annoyance. Faish sweetens the deal, promising to be the team's personal chef. She winks, demanding he appreciate her presence on their little adventure. But Solon remains completely unmoved by her cheerful sales pitch. Later that night, the hero sits alone by the fire, lost in his own dark thoughts. Nearby, their new fairy companion sleeps peacefully, oblivious to his inner turmoil. Pedia breaks the silence, asking if he's worried about their new tiny tag-along. Solon quietly admits that he is, his stoic facade cracking for a moment. The ancient tome ponders her motives, admitting her logic for joining them is sound. After all, it's a dangerous world for a lone merchant now that the devils have returned. But Solon knows their path is even deadlier, and she might not survive the journey. Pedia's all-seeing eye calls him out, asking if he was actually worried about the tiny fairy. Caught off guard, Solon retorts with a question of his own, wondering if that's such a bad thing. The ancient book expresses its relief, glad to see a flicker of humanity still remains. It warns him not to let revenge consume him, lest he become the very monster he hunts. Solon grits his teeth by the fire, vowing that he will never become a devil. Pedia seems satisfied with his answer, affirming his resolve to stay human. But under a blood-red moon, the tome reminds him that the path of a hero is never easy. Meanwhile, Faish tosses and turns in her sleep, trapped in a painful memory. A flashback reveals a tragic past, showing the tiny fairy lying broken and alone. Her nightmare reveals the moment a mysterious stranger found her and saved her from the brink. Her dream reveals a kind stranger who once told her everything would be all right. The memory is so powerful it brings tears to her eyes even in her sleep. The tiny fairy jolts awake, the nightmare still fresh in her mind. She takes a moment to compose herself, bathed in the morning sun of the forest. Her eyes land on Solen, who seems to be sleeping peacefully against a tree. A single tear rolls down her cheek as she watches over her stoic companion. But she quickly shakes off the sadness, deciding to start the day with a smile. With renewed cheer, she announces her plan to whip up a delicious breakfast. But Solen's eyes suddenly snap open, his crimson gaze sensing an approaching danger. In the distance, a group of mysterious riders thunders toward their campsite. The riders are revealed to be bandits preying on a group of desperate refugees. Their leader licks his lips, having found his next easy target. With a roar, the barbarian declares that it's officially hunting time. A terrified man steps forward, begging the ruthless bandits for mercy. But the leader just sneers, clearly enjoying their absolute terror. The man desperately explains they're just survivors with nothing left to give. A brutal blow to the face is the bandits' only response. The refugees can only scream as the riders close in on their helpless group. An old woman tearfully offers up their last bag of food. The bandit leader scoffs at the meager offering, his greed completely unsatisfied. With a wicked grin, the bandit leader gives a single, chilling order to his men. The old woman's plea for mercy is met with a swift and brutal end. His men charge forward with a bloodthirsty roar, ready to carry out his command. The defenseless refugees are quickly overwhelmed by the ruthless assault. Survivors scatter in terror, desperately trying to escape the unfolding nightmare. But the bandits give chase, determined to hunt down every last one of their victims. Elsewhere, Faish breathes a sigh of relief, believing they've made it through the dangerous mountain pass. Solon asks if she had any trouble, but the fairy insists the mountains are crawling with dangers. She points out the signs of a nearby struggle, listing bandits as one of the major threats. Her words suddenly hit home as Solon's sharp senses pick up on the nearby chaos. The bandit leader charges down a fleeing refugee, his sword raised for the final blow. A brutal flash of the blade ends the man's desperate escape in an instant. The horrifying result of the attack flies past Faish, who barely dodges in time. The bandit leader just smirks, casually remarking on his deadly handiwork. His attention then turns to Solon, seeing nothing more than his next victim. The rest of the gang cackles with glee, their glowing eyes hungry for more chaos. Faish points in terror, confirming her worst fears about the mountain pass. Solon's crimson eyes narrow in disgust, seeing humanity at its absolute worst. Pedia senses his hesitation, asking what's troubling its new master. But the bandit leader isn't taking any chances, telling his men to stay sharp. Pedia's all-seeing eye glows, sensing a dark, familiar aura from the bandits. The thug's greedy eyes lock onto Faish, recognizing her latent magical power. Their leader's gaze zeroes in on her enchanted bags, a prize he's determined to claim. Solon remains silent, his crimson eyes analyzing this new, very human threat. The brute demands her bags, offering a deal that's clearly too good to be true. But Faish clutches the pouch protectively, her fear turning into defiance. That bag is more than just an item, it's a precious memento from her past. A painful memory surfaces of the kind stranger who once saved her life. He gifted her the magic bag, a final tool for survival in a cruel world. The man's final peaceful expression is a memory she refuses to let go of. The memory reveals her savior's final gift, a tearful plea for her to take the bag and live. Back in the present, Faish's fear turns to fury as she refuses to give up her precious memento. The bandit leader scoffs at her defiance, promising a swift end for her troubles. But Solon moves without a word, placing himself directly in the path of danger. He stands as a silent guardian, ready to face down the entire gang alone. Faish's eyes sparkle with awe, her fear completely replaced by admiration. Emboldened by her protector, she cheekily taunts the bandit leader from behind Solon's back. Even Pedia can't help but comment on the tiny fairy's surprisingly stubborn attitude. Infuriated by their disrespect, the leader gives the order for his men to attack. Solen answers with a massive wave of blue energy, effortlessly halting their charge. Solon declares that he absolutely refuses to lose to a bunch of common thugs. But the bandits' glowing red eyes reveal they're far more than just human. His own crimson gaze hardens as he realizes he's not fighting men, but devils. The leader smirks, admitting their little disguise has finally been seen through. With a flourish of dark energy, he promises to show them what true power looks like. The bandits' human forms melt away, revealing grotesque centaur-like demons. Faish can only groan in disgust as Pedia prepares to analyze this new threat. The ancient tome quickly identifies them, low-ranking devils born from pure greed. Armed with their true name, Solen unleashes a vortex of glowing blue chains. The sealing magic forms a massive net, ready to ensnare the entire demonic horde. The demonic bandits are caught completely off guard, ensnared by the glowing chains. Their leader can only stare in disbelief, unable to comprehend this sudden turn of events. A horrifying realization dawns on them as the sealing magic begins to consume their very essence. Solon raises his hand, pulling the dark energy of the entire horde into a massive sealing circle. With a cold glare, he declares their reign of terror is officially over. Pedia displays their stats: low-ranking plunderers who live for chaos and greed. Faish cheers for her hero's strength, much to the ancient tome's annoyance. But Solon suddenly senses a problem, his confidence wavering for a moment. The bandit leader roars, unleashing a surge of dark power that strains against the magical bindings. Faish gasps as Pedia confirms the grim truth. This devil is far stronger than the rest. The bandit leader's eyes glow with rage, his demonic form pulsing with unexpected power. A confused Faish demands an explanation from Pedia for this sudden turn of events. The book reveals a critical weakness. Sealing magic only works if you know the devil's exact rank and name. Faish's eyes widen as she realizes the terrifying implication of their mistake. With a smug look, she immediately points the finger, blaming Pedia for getting the intel wrong. The ancient tome fires back, defensively claiming it was an honest mistake in the heat of the moment. With a furious roar, the bandit leader shatters the weakened chains, now completely unrestrained. But Solon moves in a flash, his speed catching even the powered-up devil off guard. Faish is left completely stunned, unable to comprehend what's just happened. She finds herself scooped up in an instant, snatched from the path of danger by her protector. The bandit leader makes a clean getaway, snatching the tiny fairy as his prize. He gallops off into the forest, leaving Solon and Pedia in the dust. Solen collapses, clutching his head as a wave of dark energy overwhelms him. He grits his teeth, admitting his carelessness cost them dearly. With renewed determination, he vows that not a single devil will escape his wrath. A vision of a tearful Faish fuels his promise to bring her back safely. Pedia's all-seeing eye glows in agreement, ready for the next phase of the plan. But the book points out a major flaw. Their target has the advantage of speed. The ancient tome questions how a mere human could possibly hope to catch him. Meanwhile, the demonic centaur curses his luck, trying to put as much distance as possible between them. The fleeing devil curses his luck, realizing he's in way over his head. A flashback reveals his human past, a cruel master berating a lowly servant. This master's abuse was relentless, blaming the servant for his own incompetence. But the servant's resentment festered, his eye glowing with a dark demonic power. He finally snapped, turning on his master and becoming the very devil he is today. Now he preaches his twisted philosophy to Faish: prey on the weak to survive. The tiny fairy is horrified as he boasts about gaining the power to enforce his cruel ideals. He grins manically, demanding she agree with his monstrous logic. But Faish's fear turns to defiance, calling him a coward for needing demonic power. She vows to never become a monster like him, her words striking a nerve with the devil. Her defiance only enrages the devil, who prepares to end her with a single squeeze. Suddenly, Solon drops in from above, catching the centaur completely off guard. The ancient tome activates, revealing the devil's true name, Dariashi, the counter-plunderer. Dariashi can't believe his eyes, horrified that the human somehow caught up to him. Our hero wastes no time, firing a rope of pure energy from his fingertips. The magical tether wraps securely around a nearby tree trunk. Using the tree as an anchor, he swings around, turning himself into a human projectile. The devil can only stare, stunned by Solon's creative use of the forest terrain. He rockets forward, delivering a devastating kick that sends the devil flying and frees Faish. But her freedom is short-lived as she faceplants directly into the floating book. The tiny fairy immediately blames Pedia for the mix-up, but Solen is already lost in the devil's dark energy. His crimson eye glows with a new power, absorbing the devil's unique abilities. A magical seal forms in his eye, granting him the devil's own incredible speed. Pedia displays the new entry, Dariashi, a low-ranking devil who evolved from a weaker plunderer. With another devil sealed, the trio continues their journey as the sun rises on a new day. Solen cuts straight to the point, demanding to know where Faish is leading them. She just winks, cheekily telling him they'll find out when they get there. Pedia scolds her for being mysterious, insisting that information is key to their survival. After a brief glare at the book, Faish finally points them toward their next destination. She reveals their target, a massive ominous castle she calls the Sleeping Town. Solon questions the ominous name as Faish explains that anyone who approaches the town falls into a deep sleep. She reveals the gates are littered with slumbering victims, caught in a mysterious purple haze. Pedia deduces this means the town's interior is a complete mystery to outsiders. Faish immediately blames a devil, but the tome considers that powerful magic could also be the cause. The tiny fairy is stunned that any magic could be this powerful. Pedia bluntly states that while possible, Solon is nowhere near that level yet. A vision reveals a powerful white-haired mage, the kind of person capable of such a spell. Solen grits his teeth, admitting only a legendary sage could wield such incredible power. But Pedia declares that if it's a magician's doing, it's not their problem, much to Faish's horror. The tiny fairy is left completely speechless by their sudden lack of interest. But Pedia admits a devil is the more likely culprit, a lead they can't afford to ignore. The book turns on Faish, questioning her real reason for wanting to visit the mysterious town. It gets right in her face, demanding honesty if she expects them to trust her. The tome then lays on the guilt, reminding her how hard Solen fought to save her. Faish is completely taken aback, a single bead of sweat betraying her surprise. Pedia clarifies that his goal wasn't just to hunt devils, but to rescue her specifically. Solen turns away, clearly flustered by the book's sentimental analysis. The realization dawns on Faish, her face lighting up with a brilliant, blushing smile. She gets adorably flustered, laughing off the implication due to their species difference. But with a playful wink, she cheekily suggests that if he really insists. Solen's eyes flash with fury as he grabs the tiny fairy, completely shutting down her advance. He yells in frustration, his stoic demeanor cracking under her relentless teasing. With a huff, he unceremoniously tosses the flirty fairy aside. Pedia floats past a face-planted Faish, dryly critiquing her failed attempt at charm. But Faish just laughs it off, her cheerful spirit completely unshaken. As night falls, she spots a village, a potential safe haven in the desolate landscape. She eagerly rushes ahead, but Solen questions her sudden knowledge of the area. The fairy nervously admits she only knows the place by reputation, avoiding his gaze. His crimson eyes narrow, sensing there's more to her story than she's letting on. Deciding to avoid any trouble, he puts her in charge of talking to the locals. Faish leads the way into the village, but the locals barely give them a second glance. The entire town seems to be in a daze, their faces etched with exhaustion and despair. The fairy points out the obvious gloom, and Solen confirms that something is definitely off. But an old woman greets them with a surprisingly warm welcome, calling them a rare sight. Her welcome quickly turns into a desperate, wide-eyed plea for them to stay the night. She offers them a free meal and a room, insisting they can stay as long as they want. The villagers' hospitality feels less like kindness and more like a carefully laid trap. Alone in their new room, the duo sits in silence, the unsettling welcome hanging in the air. Faish finally breaks the tension, admitting their host's intensity was deeply unnerving. Solen's crimson eyes narrow in agreement, confirming that this village is hiding a dark secret. A sudden crash from outside snaps both Solon and Faish to attention. They peer through the window, confirming the disturbance is right outside their door. Faish is stunned to see the villagers farming in the dead of night. But Pedia's all-seeing eye confirms the grim truth. Their real hosts have arrived. A disembodied voice echoes through the village, barking a single chilling command. The villagers are revealed to be slaves, forced to work until they drop. A horrifying blue devil emerges from the darkness, the true master of this town. Faish's worst fears are confirmed as Solon's gaze hardens with resolve. The monster gloats, promising its human puppets an eternity of suffering. Its single eye glows with malevolent power, relishing the despair it creates. The villagers are worked past their limits, their hands collapsing into the dirt. Their faces are pale and lifeless, more like mindless puppets than people. Any sign of rest is met with a brutal blow from their demonic overseer. The monster roars its cruel decree. They will work until their last breath. From the window, a horrified Faish can't believe her eyes, but Pedia confirms the obvious. She snaps back, disgusted not by its form but by its sheer sadism. Solon cuts through the chatter, demanding to know the creature's name. Pedia's all-seeing eye glows, already attempting to analyze the new threat. But the book reveals a problem. This devil is somehow resisting its scan. The ancient tome explains this is no low-level pest. They're facing a higher-ranking devil. Faish is completely stunned by this revelation, a bead of sweat tracing her cheek. The ancient tome confirms the grim news, stating that this new foe is incredibly strong. But Solon is already on the move, climbing out the window as Faish demands to know his plan. She frantically reminds him that his sealing magic is useless without the devil's name. Pedia chimes in, calling out to its master to reconsider his reckless charge. The book calmly suggests that if they can't get an ID, retreating is their only smart move. Meanwhile, the blue devil looms over a collapsed villager, its cruel whip ready to strike. A desperate woman pleads for her father's life, begging the monster to let him rest. The creature just scoffs, its fanged maw twisting into a cruel, mocking grin. It then declares they have no right to beg before moving in for a brutal attack. But Solen drops in from above, his glowing fist ready to deliver some justice. His attack connects with a brilliant flash, but the monster easily blocks the blow. The hero clicks his tongue in annoyance, realizing this devil is on another level. Stunned by the interruption, the creature demands to know who dares to interfere. Solen's answer is simple and cold. He's the one who hunts monsters like him. The devil scoffs at his confidence, enraged that a mere human would challenge it. A brutal counterattack sends Solon flying, proving this is no ordinary foe. But he quickly recovers, firing a concentrated beam of pure energy at the beast. The devil laughs maniacally, impressed by his power as Solon uses his chains to reposition. He then unleashes a massive net of sealing chains, hoping to ensnare the powerful creature. Faish's eyes sparkle, suddenly filled with a brilliant idea. She confidently declares that with her plan, victory is practically guaranteed. Pedia explains that Solon is adapting, using his magic in new and creative ways. The tiny fairy cheekily takes all the credit, much to the book's annoyance. But the ancient tome reminds them that without a name, all this flashy fighting is useless. Faish snaps at the book to hurry up, but Pedia insists it needs a clue to break the mental block. The fairy stares intently, demanding to know what kind of clue they need. Pedia bluntly admits that if it knew the answer, this fight would already be over. As the two continue to bicker, a terrified villager peeks out from a nearby house. The man whispers a single crucial word, offering them the key to their victory. The old woman asks if knowing the name would help, offering the exact clue they need. Her story begins with a flashback, showing the man clashing with his past self. The village was once home to a pair of beautiful siblings, a brother and a sister. But when a noble took his sister away, the brother's heart began to twist with resentment. He gained power and revealed a cruel, sadistic nature hidden behind his handsome face. The villagers were crushed under his rule, forced to work endlessly under heavy taxes. His cruelty was so intense, his very shadow began to resemble a demonic beast. Eventually, the man's humanity shattered and he became the very devil they now face. Solon grits his teeth, barely holding on against the monster's overwhelming power. With perfect timing, the old woman reveals the devil's true name, Kyra. Pedia's eye flashes as it triumphantly identifies the beast as Kyus. The book reveals its full title, Wrath Rank 9, The Flame Wrath Kyus. Solon channels the power of a previously sealed devil, activating a speed-enhancing spell. He blasts off with blinding speed, shattering the very ground beneath his feet. The devil roars that it's over, completely underestimating the powered-up hero. But Solen appears in a flash, coldly declaring that Kyus is the one who's finished. He unleashes a massive whirlwind of sealing magic, a brilliant blue vortex of power. The magical storm slams into the devil, who can only cry out in agony. Kyus is pinned to the ground by glowing chains, completely at the hero's mercy. With a final declaration, Solen begins the sealing process, his hand glowing with dark energy. As Solen seals the devil, he's flooded with its memories of a peaceful life with his sister. Her smile was the only thing that mattered in their simple, impoverished world. But their quiet life was shattered the day a corrupt noble visited their village. The lecherous man's eyes landed on his sister, and he immediately decided to claim her. When the brother fought back, his own neighbors held him down, betraying him completely. They sacrificed his sister for their own prosperity, dragging her away from her home. The villagers ignored her desperate tears, seeing her as nothing more than a price to pay. With the sister gone, the villagers celebrated their new wealth, feasting on their reward. The brother's heart filled with an unforgivable rage, vowing revenge on those who sold her out. Fueled by hatred, he set off alone to the noble's town, determined to save his sister. He arrived to find the town shrouded in a purple mist, with his sister at its very center. But the horror of her fate twisted his soul, transforming him into a monster of pure rage. The memory reveals the mist was his sister's final wish, a peaceful end to her suffering. Kyus explains that eternal sleep was the only salvation his sister could find. So in his twisted grief, he denied the villagers the same mercy, forcing them into endless labor. Solen has seen enough, cutting the tragic memory short with a single command. But the devil's final memory echoes, a declaration of his tragic purpose. Back in the present, the defeated Kyus lies on the ground, his story finally told. Solen stands over him, now burdened with the full weight of the devil's sorrow. With a grim look of understanding, our hero acknowledges the pain behind the monster's rage. The villagers watch as Solon seals the devil, its dark energy swirling into a new card. With their tormentor gone, the villagers erupt in a chorus of joyous celebration. But their cheers are cut short as one of them suddenly chokes, his body failing. In an instant, the entire village collapses, their life force completely drained. A horrified Faish rushes to an old woman, demanding to know what's happening. Pedia reveals the grim truth. The devil's magic was the only thing keeping them alive. Faish is left speechless, realizing their rescue was actually a death sentence. Solon sits with the now human Kyus, asking if his long quest for revenge is finally over. With a final peaceful breath, the man agrees, his soul finally at rest. But Kyus' spirit lingers, addressing the hero who granted him his final wish. The spirit's final tearful plea is for Solon to find and protect his sister Karina. Our hero's crimson eyes harden, accepting this heavy new burden without a word. As the last of the devil's energy fades, Solen's resolve is set in stone. He makes a silent vow to bring Karina back, no matter the cost. With a new mission driving them, the trio continues their journey through the desolate landscape. Faish looks back with a heavy heart, lamenting that in the end everyone was gone. But Pedia coldly declares that the villagers' greed brought about their own deserved end. The tiny fairy still seems conflicted, unable to accept such a harsh form of justice. Solon offers a chilling truth, explaining that devils are born from the darkness in human hearts. He concludes with a grim realization: their true enemy is humanity itself. Faish is left speechless, struggling to accept his dark view of the world. Even Pedia admits his cynical take on humanity is a bit much. But Solon walks on, declaring that this moral ambiguity is what makes humans so troublesome. The newly sealed card of Kyus serves as a grim reminder of how easily a man can become a monster. Their journey soon brings them to the gates of the sleeping town, where a mysterious plague has claimed every living thing. Solen confirms their arrival, his gaze fixed on the ominous castle ahead. Pedia's eye glows, identifying a powerful magic mist and warning them to strategize before moving in. Our hero agrees, his mind already working on a plan to tackle this new threat. He decides their first move is to find a high vantage point to survey the entire town. From a nearby hill, they witness the source of the curse, a massive pillar of purple energy erupting from the castle. Faish squints into the distance, completely unimpressed by their new vantage point. She complains that the town is too far away and completely shrouded in a mysterious mist. But Solen calmly disagrees, his enhanced vision cutting right through the magical haze. He points directly at the source of the curse, his focus locked on their true target. His gaze reveals a serene, horned woman at the heart of the magical storm. She sits with her eyes closed in a state of solemn prayer, unaware of the chaos she's causing. Faish is stunned by her beauty, even admitting it's strange for a devil. But the fairy quickly notices the overwhelming sadness that surrounds the mysterious woman. Pedia confirms her identity. This is Karina, the sister Kyus fought so hard to save. The ancient tome declares that regardless of her state, they have a promise to keep. Solon cuts to the chase, asking the million-dollar question, how do they defeat her? He reveals a reckless plan, a single, all-out magical burst from their current position. His eyes burn with resolve, vowing to end this fight before her cursed mist can claim him. Pedia warns him of the high stakes, reminding him that failure means joining the sleeping victims. But Solon dismisses the warning, declaring that if he can't win here, he can't win anywhere. The ancient tome has to agree, finding his grim logic undeniably sound. With the plan set, Pedia declares it's time for some serious, thorough preparation. Solen begins the ritual, drawing a single, deliberate line in the dirt with a staff. The line expands into a massive, intricate magic circle, a stage for his all-or-nothing attack. He then practices his moves, whipping his glowing chains with incredible speed and precision. He pushes his body to the limit, mastering every ounce of his sealing power. Faish watches on, a mix of awe and concern on her face. That night, she conjures a magical feast, declaring it's for their decisive battle tomorrow. Solon is genuinely stunned by her efforts, simply calling it amazing. She beams with pride, insisting it's a well-deserved reward for his hard work. He takes a bite and, to her delight, admits the food is absolutely delicious. For a brief moment, his stoic mask slips as he sincerely compliments her cooking. The tiny fairy is completely stunned into silence by his rare display of kindness. But Solon immediately ruins the moment, calling her honesty creepy and earning a threat in return. He then turns serious, admitting that he was suspicious of her from the very beginning. He explains that he was completely naive, thrust into a world that had been turned upside down. So when Faish appeared out of nowhere to help him, it all felt a little too convenient. But he admits with a sigh that he was just being paranoid. With a rare moment of vulnerability, he offers her a sincere apology. His words hit her hard, leaving the tiny fairy on the verge of tears. She quickly shakes it off, trying to compose herself with a flustered sigh. The fairy stammers, clearly caught off guard by his sudden honesty. But her expression turns serious as she admits she has a confession of her own. Gathering her courage, she reveals there's something important she's been hiding. Solon's crimson eyes narrow, waiting patiently for her to finally tell the truth. Faish begins her story with a tragic flashback. The day devils burned her entire forest home to the ground. She tearfully explains that in the fiery chaos, she was the only one left alive. Lost and alone, she collapsed from exhaustion, completely unprepared for the world outside her home. But just as she was about to give up, a kind, traveling merchant found her in the pouring rain. The old man saved her life, nursing the tiny, broken fairy back to health. Grateful for his kindness, she became his traveling companion, seeing the world from his backpack. He taught her everything he knew, from the ways of the city to the art of being a merchant. For a time, the two of them were a happy, unconventional family on the road. But their journey came to a tragic end when devils ambushed them on their way home. Now she carries his bag as a precious keepsake, determined to deliver it and fulfill a final promise. She reveals her ultimate goal, to reach the town sealed by the mysterious mist. The fairy admits that from the moment she met him, she saw an opportunity. She believed he was the only one strong enough to defeat the devils and clear the curse. Faish confesses that's the real reason she led him all the way to this town. Solon calmly tosses his spoon into the fire, simply saying he understands. With a confident smirk, he declares that her plan works out perfectly for him. The tiny fairy is completely stunned, asking if he's not angry with her deception. He casually dismisses her concern, wondering why he would possibly be mad. A flustered Faish blurts out the obvious, reminding him that she was trying to use him. Solen's gaze hardens as he states his simple, brutal mission. He defeats all devils, no exceptions. He calmly explains that this town was always on his list, so her plan just sped things up. Solen tells her to focus on her own mission, returning that precious keepsake. With a rare look of sincerity, he tells her not to worry about a thing. His unexpected kindness leaves the tiny fairy completely speechless. With tears of gratitude in her eyes, she offers him a simple, heartfelt thank you. Pedia breaks the tender moment, asking if anyone's ready for another round of food. The next morning, Solen stands ready, the very ground cracking with his resolve. Positioned in his massive magic circle, he declares that all preparations are finally complete. But Pedia points out a critical flaw. They still can't get a lock on Karina's name or rank. Solon remains unfazed, confident they'll get the intel they need once they're close enough for the final assault. Solon confirms the reckless plan, get in close and end it fast. With his crimson eyes burning, he declares there's no other choice but to push forward. Pedia can only sigh in resignation at its master's stubborn resolve. Solen's hair flashes blue as he unleashes his full power, roaring that it's time to go. He stands at the center of the magic circle, erupting in a brilliant column of blue energy. A worried Faish can only watch him go, offering a heartfelt plea for his safe return. Our hero becomes a blur of motion, blasting off with blinding speed. He rockets across the landscape, a magical comet aimed directly at the sleeping town. Solen soars through the air, a human projectile wrapped in a blinding aura of power. He grits his teeth, pushing his body past its limits to close the distance in an instant. He closes in on the castle, a brilliant blue meteor of pure magical energy. As he reaches his target, he extends a hand, ready to unleash his sealing magic. A chain of pure energy erupts from his palm, shooting directly toward the serene devil. Pedia's all-seeing eye flashes, finally locking onto the devil's true name. But a swirling vortex of dark energy suddenly materializes right behind him. Solen's eyes widen in shock as he senses an entirely new, overwhelming presence. A shadowy figure emerges from the portal, rocketing toward the unprepared hero. The mysterious attacker descends upon him, a blinding light heralding its arrival. Overwhelmed by the assault, Solon is sent plummeting back toward the cursed town. The two forces collide in a cataclysmic explosion that rocks the very sky. Stunned by the ambush, Solon tries to regain control as he plummets from the sky. His stray magic blasts pepper the rooftops below, a sign of his chaotic descent. The sudden commotion stirs the sleeping devil, her senses finally awakening. Watching from afar, a horrified Faish can only cry out as her hero falls. Her confidence shatters into pure panic as she scrambles for a plan. But her fear quickly turns to resolve. She's not about to lose another friend. With a determined look, the tiny fairy rockets toward the cursed town on a rescue mission. Meanwhile, Solen prepares a last-ditch spell to soften his brutal landing. He slams into the ground, a sphere of blue energy absorbing the deadly impact. Even the all-knowing Pedia is baffled, demanding to know what just hit them. His landing is cushioned, but our hero is now trapped deep in enemy territory. Solen admits he has no idea what just ambushed them from the sky, but he hazards a guess that it was probably another devil, and Pedia agrees. He scolds himself for naively assuming there would only be one threat in the cursed town. But the new development doesn't faze him in the slightest. With a defiant glare, he declares that if there are two devils, he'll simply defeat them both. Pedia cuts in with a grim reminder: their protective shield against the sleeping mist is fading fast. Solon wastes no time demanding the name of their original target. The tome finally identifies her: Sloth Rank 70, Coronation, the Devil of Comfort. But a vision of her terrified face reveals her comfort is nothing but a tragic prison. Pedia warns him to resist the mist's pull, but it's already too late. Solon snaps back, but his bravado is clearly fading fast. He groans as the last of his protective energy dissolves, leaving him vulnerable. The ancient tome panics, realizing its master has breathed in the cursed air. With a final desperate call from Pedia, Solon collapses into a deep slumber. His hand falls limp as he's claimed by the town's magical curse. Just in the nick of time, Faish arrives at the cursed castle, ready for a rescue. She grimaces at the sight of the sleeping victims, disgusted by the powerful curse. With a frustrated sigh, she realizes it's up to her to save the day. The tiny fairy roars with newfound courage, vowing to rescue her fallen protector. But her rescue mission is cut short as a mysterious hand snatches her right out of the air. A new voice questions her reckless charge, his silhouette reflected in her terrified eyes. Her would-be rescuer is a mysterious red-haired man, warning her this is a devil's territory. He points to the cursed town, telling her she'll suffer the same fate if she gets any closer. But Faish's resolve doesn't waver, demanding he let her go so she can save her friend. To her surprise, the stranger simply releases her wing without a fight. He smirks, admitting he finds her fiery determination incredibly appealing. The stranger even claims her passionate loyalty is enough to make him jealous. Completely bewildered, the tiny fairy cautiously asks for the identity of her strange new acquaintance. But he just grins, brushing off her question as if his name is completely irrelevant. He points to the cursed town, confirming her goal is just to get inside. With a casual gesture, he gathers a massive ball of golden energy in his palm. He unleashes a furious torrent of fire, roaring that he'll just burn it all away. The pillar of flames rockets toward the castle, a display of overwhelming power. The castle's massive stone wall is instantly obliterated by the fiery explosion. A stunned Faish can only stare as the smoke clears from his destructive spell. She demands to know if he's some kind of incredible wizard. The stranger just smirks, smugly declaring that he's a genius. Then, with a casual flick, he sends a tiny spark of magic right at the fairy. The spark envelops her in a protective aura, much to her complete surprise. He explains his fiery barrier will now keep the cursed mist safely contained. The tiny fairy is completely blown away by his incredible display of power. The stranger laughs, shamelessly soaking up her well-deserved admiration. He gestures for the hesitant fairy to get moving, her path now completely clear. Faish offers a flustered thanks, still processing the stranger's overwhelming strength. The man just waves her off, urging her to go on ahead. With her magical protection active, she flies through the breach and into the cursed town. But she can't help but glance back, a flicker of doubt crossing her face. The mysterious man stands alone, his silhouette watching as she disappears into the mist. His smug grin leaves Faish wondering just who this powerful red-haired stranger really is.